Hey watch fans, I recently picked up a Seiko Marinemaster 300 Prospect line SBDX017 running the Cal 8L35 movement, Grand Seiko movement. And anyway, I thought I'd do a quick comparison with the Rolex and talk a little bit about this Marinemaster, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, some of my concerns before buying it, etc. And I had been looking at this watch a long time. I was on the fence about it, mainly because of the size of it. It's 44 millimeter, and it's 14.5 millimeters tall, or thick, and lengthwise it's 50 millimeter. And my watch weighs about 205 grams. I weighed it. So it's a big, heavy watch, very chunky watch. And I got a 7-inch wrist, so that was a pretty big concern. I'm not a big fan of oversized watches. And I wanted something I could wear, daily wear, and not get in the way, right? Not just have this big clunky watch that I was worried about banging on stuff, and the watch wears me, so I sat on the fence a long time, and I think it was Seiko announcing that they were going to discontinue this thing that finally got me to make a move on it. And a friend of mine offered me one at a pretty good price, considering that they've gone up quite a bit. They're at the $2,500 mark new now. And I remember when they were $1,500, so my procrastinating cost me this time. But anyway, I'm happy I got the watch, and pretty happy with it overall. Build quality on it is just fantastic. I've owned a number of Seikos back in the 80s and 90s. I kind of got into Rolex and forgot about Seiko for a long time, but this Marinemaster really got me interested in them again, and the Grand Seiko divers. So I started looking at them and realized that they had really upped their game and were giving you a lot of value. So I decided to pull the trigger on one and finally add it to my collection. And I am not disappointed in the watch. The build quality is excellent. It is just a well executed watch. So I handled monsters and the Sumo and some other lesser cheaper Seiko divers, and those are very nice watches. I'm really surprised at how far Seiko's come here lately. But this Marinemaster is on a whole different level, in my opinion. It's just the fit and finish, the polishing, the bezel action, everything about it. The dial is well done. How the raised indices and the crazy lume that's in it. I'm kind of a lume freak, so I really like the fact that this thing glows like a torch at night. Much brighter than the Rolex. Even their new formula chromalite doesn't hold a candle to the intensity of the glow of this, at least initially. And both seem to last about the same amount of time. So I was pretty impressed with the lume that Seiko's using these days. And I was impressed with the Rolex. Couple of disappointments. The Hardlux crystal instead of sapphire. This is a lacquered metal insert of some sort. It's nice, and it's very well done, and it's kind of shiny and blingy, but it's obviously it's not ceramic. I kind of got spoiled by Rolex's new ceramic bezels. And the bracelet, I think that's probably the biggest disappointment. You know, it's a well done and very functional bracelet. You know, it's got that fancy ratcheting dive extension, you know, so you can add a little bit of length on a hot day. You can pop it out a couple of notches. But I don't know, it kind of reminds me of the bracelets on like the the 007s and the monsters, the monster and the sumo, right? It's just pin and link, or pin and collar, excuse me. And that's another thing. I adjusted this thing and it was not fun. You know, you got these little tiny collars, or yeah, see that? Here, boy, that thing is, I dropped one and I spent the better part of 15 minutes trying to find it, and the pins. And this collar, it was in the center link. It kind of confused me. I was looking for it on one of the ends, but it's actually in the center link. And anyway, you need one of these $10 pin pushers to do it, you know safely. You can do it with paper clips and pliers, I suppose, but you wouldn't want to, I don't know, you wouldn't, I think it's better to spend 10 bucks when you're doing surgery, bracelet surgery on a $2,500 watch. And so it was a little bit more involved than the screws and stuff on a Rolex. But as far as the comparison, I often hear it compared to the Rolex Submariner. You know, it's Rolex has been making this watch since what, the 50s, early 50s. It's kind of the benchmark. It's kind of the watch that everybody compares their dive watch to, and it compares very well. I will say that right off the bat. The fit and finish, of course, is not quite as good as Rolex. The machining, I mean, just for instance, look at how the end link fits to the case. You know, there's a little bit of play right here, and there's nothing like that on the Rolex. When I had the bracelet off, I was looking at the machining on the Seiko, and it was quite a bit cruder as compared to the Rolex. The way the glide lock bracelet adjusts, you know, the sapphire and, you know, ceramic bezel, etc., 904 steel. You know, I'm realistic about it. I realize that this is almost 3 times the cost of this, you know. So I look at it from a value standpoint, and the Seiko just gives you so much value that, you know, you don't mind spending $2,500 for it. It's that good of a watch. If you can get past the size issue. Like I said, I have a 7-inch wrist, and this Seiko wears a lot smaller, and that's mainly because the bezel is actually closer to 42, and it's got a small dial. And the case sticks out here, you can see. It sticks out a little bit beyond the bezel, and it tapers up this way, and it tapers down this way. So the width is really only this apex right here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's 50 millimeters, so that's not overly big. And all these design tricks cause, you know, the watch to appear to wear quite a bit smaller than the 44 millimeter case size would lead you to believe. So a lot of people that are worried about that, I'll show this watch on my 7-inch wrist, and you guys can be the judge. I don't think it looks bad at all. I think I can pull off this size. And I'll hold them up here. So 40 millimeter versus 44. You see what I mean? There's not a real big difference visually when you're looking at them. So good job, Seiko. You've somehow camouflaged a 44 millimeter case to appear a little bit bigger than a 40 millimeter case. At least how it wears on the wrist. So I will be right back and I will show you both watches on the wrist, and you can see how both of them wear and compare to each other. Before I show the wrist shots, I thought I'd show this crazy lume on the Seiko compared to the Rolex. Rolex's new latest, greatest chromolite lume versus the current generation Seiko lume. They both are excellent. Seiko's, of course, a lot brighter. They both last about the same amount of time. They both will go well into the morning hours. I've gotten up at 3, 4 in the morning and they're both still readable. So anyway, if you like lume, it's hard to beat that Seiko, these Seiko dive watches. Let's see what people are talking about now. Alright, I'll be back in a sec. Okay, here's the Seiko. Doesn't look too bad. 44 millimeter, 7-inch wrist. There's the main issue is the height of it. Can't get around that. Wears a little high, but as far as the diameter, the width of it, doesn't look too overly large on my smallish wrist. Yeah, I think I can pull this off. I'll show the Rolex next, and you can kind of see that there's visually on the wrist there's not a lot of difference, so I'll let you guys kind of be the judge of that. And the Rolex, 40 millimeter, pretty standard. Not a lot of difference, is there? How it wears compared to the Seiko at 44 millimeter. I think Seiko did a pretty clever job the way they designed that watch to wear smaller. So some of you guys that are considering the Seiko and are a little bit worried about that large dimension case looking too big on you, I think hopefully this allays your fear a little bit. Here's the big difference, it's the height. A 2 millimeter really makes a big difference. But anyway, pretty happy about this acquisition. I think I'm going to keep this watch. It gives you a lot of value for the money spent. Seiko does. It's comparison to the Rolex is I see why people do it. You know, it's I guess the Japanese Submariner, right? So that's the moniker I hear attached to it, and rightly so. It's a very good watch at this price point, especially when you start comparing it to some of the premium Swiss watches. So anyway, overall, I think I can live with the size, and if I have to flip it, it's a insanely popular watch, and I'm pretty sure I can flip it pretty easily. So you guys out there looking for one and you're a little concerned about the size, hopefully this allays your fear a little bit. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.